By the end of this video, you will know how you can automate the creation and the signature collection on dynamic documents that have conditions within them, such as offer letters. If we stick with the example of the previous video where I showed you how to automate employee onboarding, the set of documents we looked at automating consisted of static documents only. We had a form type offer letter, company policy, and we also had some government forms. But just for today's example, let's imagine that the offer letter we want to automatically generate for our candidates might or might not need to include an extra paragraph. Let's say that some candidates we want to make an offer to require a work visa, which means that the offer they are receiving is contingent upon them being granted the work permit from the government. To the right is the example of what the offer letter would look like for a candidate who does require a work visa. And to the left is what it would look like for a candidate who doesn't need a visa. You can see that the only difference is the text that's highlighted in different colors. Now, if I were creating the offer letter manually in Word, I'll just need to remove the paragraph from my template, or I should say maybe adapt the paragraphs inside of my template. But if you're watching this video, it's because you already know that doing things manually is much more expensive than investing in setting up an automation once that will save you so much time and accelerate the way you conduct business for the next possible future. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Sofian Saudi. I'm the founder of Solusign Consulting. We are a digital transformation agency that helped over 500 businesses since 2019. If you need help setting up your templates, forms, or creating integrations with DocuSign, you can use the link in the description of this video to book a call with one of our specialists. Our services include templates and form development, integrations development. But if you prefer to do things on your own, I strongly suggest that you download our free document automation cheat sheet. It will help you understand the fundamentals of document automation. Now let's jump on my screen where I'll show you how you can automate the generation of your offer letters so that they include a clause in our contract that says that the offer is contingent upon our candidate obtaining the work visa for a candidate who does need a visa. So let me just demo you first how the solution works now that it's built. So the software that we're now looking at is called Airtable. It's the equivalent of a Google Sheet, but much more powerful. If you don't know what Airtable is, just think of it as a big spreadsheet that allows us to do a lot of things, store the data and visualize the data and automate all the workflows that we want to automate. Now, in this particular demo, we are using Airtable as an applicant tracking system. This is something we implement for our clients who do want to automate and streamline the employee onboarding workflows. In this particular demo, I've built 3 stages that my candidates can be under. We've got applied, shortlist, and hire. But of course, you will have many more stages in real life. So as you can see here, we have 2 candidates in the shortlist phase. We have Amy, who does require a visa because it says that she needs a visa. And then we have Peter, who doesn't need a visa. To keep things simple, we'll just say that they've applied for the same role, which is an EVO, and they are both in the shortlist stage, right? So they are about to be offered the position. So what we'll do here, we can see that the offer letter status, we haven't created an offer letter for them, but this is what we want to do, and we want to do it automatically. I'm going to open my extensions here just to show you how easy this thing is once it's set up. Then I'm going to select my 2 candidates, and again, you understand that Amy does need a visa and Peter doesn't, so we technically need to have 2 different documents. I'm going to select the right templates and then click on create documents. What's happening now, as you can see, the documents are being created and the status of the offer letter has changed to sent, which means that they have been sent the offer letter. Now let's take a look at the offer letters to see what they look like. So as you can see here in this particular one, the one for Amy, I do have my long paragraph about the conditions with the visa. And then if I open Peter's, I do have my offer letter as well with all Peter's contacts, and we only have the paragraph, nothing mentions the visa. So this one says an employment offer, and again, this one says conditional employment offer, but we used the same template, and this is because we were able to create some conditional sections within the dynamic document templates. And so why does the offer letter status says sent? It's because we haven't just generated the document, we've also sent the document for signature. So let me just show you Amy's inbox. I'm just going to look at my own emails, but acting as Amy. Let's just pretend for a second I'm acting as Amy. So it does say here offer letter for Amy. I know this is for her. And so acting as Amy, I'm just going to click on review to open the envelope. So my offer letter is here. I'm going to click on sign, adopt and sign, and that's it. And so the next step will be for the hiring manager, because there are two recipients in this envelope, to complete their signature. So I'm going to go back to my emails, and this time I will be acting as the hiring manager. So I'm just going to click on review. So I'm now acting as the HR. I'm now countersigning the envelope, and that's it. I'm done. Now let's see what's happening in the database. Now that the offer letter has been signed, the status for Amy in the database should change from shortlist to hire, because she has accepted the offer letter. And so the offer letter status will change from sent to accepted. It hasn't happened yet. It can take a couple of minutes. So while this is happening, I'm going to show you how the automation is set up. But first, let's review how the solution works and the tools you're going to use. First, you'll need a database that holds your information about your candidates. Here, I'm using Airtable in this example, but you could be using something else. Second, you'll need a cloud mail merge document template built in a tool that supports conditional logic. I'm using DocuPilot here because I know that it does support conditional logic. So make sure that the mail merge tool that you want to use does have that feature. Third, you'll also need an electronic signature software that takes the mail merge documents and sends them for signature to your recipients. For example, DocuSign. This is what we're using, what I'm using here, but you could be using HelloSign if you wanted to. And finally, you'll need an automation platform that can help you automate the exchange of information between all these apps. Here I'm using Zapier, but you could be doing the same with Make, Integromat, Power Automate, and anything else that you'd like. Now that you know what you need, let's talk about how you would actually need to create it and set it up. So the first thing you'll want to do is to create your offer letter inside of Word. And the reason you want to do it in Word is because it's much easier to manipulate the formatting in Word and then upload it inside of DocuPilot. So as you can see here, my document template contains placeholders for candidates' personal information, as well as condition here, it starts with an if, that makes the work visa paragraph appear or disappear depending on whether or not the candidate does need a work visa. So you want to insert a merge field for all the information. You want to insert your conditions. I'll show you where you can understand how to build the conditions later. And the last thing you want to do is to add your DocuSign anchor tags. So if I highlight this and make the font black, you will see that there are some anchor tags, I guess, hidden in white. And so since we are not using a DocuSign template, we are using a DocuPilot template, remember, but we still want to use DocuSign to collect the signatures. I'm using those anchor text to tell DocuSign where the DocuSign fields should be added onto my document. So S1 is for signature, 1, N1 for name, and D for date. Then once you've created this document, you upload it inside of DocuPilot, which is the mail merge software that, again, I recommend using. And again, you can find the link in the description below to get 10% off the lifetime of your subscription, or you can also use the code Solusign10. 10% off, not bad. So once you've created your template in DocuPilot, it's very simple. You log into DocuPilot, click on create new template, you upload your Word document, then DocuPilot will pick up all the different template tokens. This is what they call. I call this a merge field, but they call it template tokens. So once this is done, then I've configured my trigger. So what is going to happen, what needs to happen, I should say, inside of my database so that DocuPilot understands that it's time to generate the document and send it for signature through to DocuSign. So for your trigger, you could be using a button, you could be using a drop down. So here, because I'm using Airtable, I'm actually using an extension. So it's just a plugin that they have that connects directly with DocuPilot. So my trigger really is pretty simple. I just select my candidates, and then I open this right panel and select the template that I want to use to generate my mail merge. But if you didn't have this extension, you could just use a drop down and maybe just click on something, one of those options here that could generate that could be one of the triggers. If you're using Google Sheets, you can definitely use a drop down menu. This is what I actually recommend. So you could just click on send offer letter, and that would trigger the offer letter to be generated and sent for signature through to DocuSign. But I don't like Google Sheets very much for a lot of reasons. It can work. It's just other software are just much better for these kind of things. So in summary, just think about which field you want to use as the button trigger for the generation of your document. Once you've decided on what your trigger will be, then you'll want to connect the trigger to DocuPilot. I'm currently using Zapier for most of my automations. You don't have to use Zapier. You can be using something else. It doesn't matter. Now, I don't have a real demo app to show you to create this particular automation because I'm using Airtable, which integrates directly with DocuPilot. But I can show you an integration that I have between Google Sheets and DocuSign, which works in the exact same way. So what you will want to do is first have Google Sheet as your trigger, and then you will select obviously which Google Sheet and which worksheet within your Google Sheet. And then you will want to add a filter. The filter is super important because if you don't add a filter, your automation might run, but you might not be ready. You might not want the automation to run right now. Let me give you an example. If you're completing the first last name of the person in the email, but you haven't had the chance to populate their mailing address, for example, you don't want the automation to run until you are completely done with populating your row, because otherwise your documents will be generated with missing information. So it's very important that you add a filter. And so the filter should always be your trigger button. This is why we want a trigger. So here you could say that you want your filter to be when you click on send offer letter. So this is what you want to do here in Zapier. You want you to tell Zapier only continue if this particular cell contains this particular word. So that's the second step. Now, this step here says DocuSign, but you can just replace this by DocuPilot and you will do the same thing. Instead of mapping your Google Sheet cells to your DocuPilot template. So basically you would get a list here of all the template tokens. This is what DocuPilot calls it. You'll have all of the DocuPilot tokens here, and you would just map them with your Google Sheet cells. And when you're done, that's it. Your document would be generated and would go out. At least it would be generated. We'll talk about the next step. Once you've mapped all your Google Sheet fields to your DocuPilot template tokens inside of Zapier, at that point, your mail merge would be generated, but I haven't said it would be sent. It would be generated. The last thing you'll want to configure is a DocuSign delivery method inside of DocuPilot, so that the mail merge document doesn't just stay in DocuPilot, but it actually gets sent for signature via DocuSign. So this part of the automation isn't done in Zapier, it's done in DocuPilot. So in your template here, you will want to add a delivery, and you can configure as many deliveries as you want. You can say you want the mail merge to be saved in Google Drive or something else, but the main one, really, if you want to collect signatures, is to configure the DocuSign delivery. And so here it's pretty simple. You'll just need to add your DocuSign account by putting in your name and your email and password. You want to customize maybe the email subject. You also want to add your recipient. So here we will need 2 recipients. My first recipient is going to be the first name and candidate last name. Here I'm using my template tokens and then my candidate email. So this is the information I'm grabbing from either Airtable or Google Sheets. And then my second recipient can be a static recipient, right? We don't need to use merge fields for that, template tokens for that. We can just put in the name and email if the HR person is always the same. Of course, if the HR person varies, we would want to have variables here, but it might not be the case. And lastly, what you'll want to do is to configure DocuSign and Zapier together so that once your candidate's letters have been signed, the status of the other letter can change to offer accepted inside of Airtable. So as you can see here, now that we're looking at it, Amy's record shows accepted and her status is in the higher stage. That was done automatically. I did not do it. And if I open the mail merge document, it's now the signed version, and before it was the blank version. This was done by configuring DocuSign with Airtable. So once the application has been signed inside of DocuSign, Zapier is able to pick this up, extract the application ID from the document, and then find the application that needs to be updated inside of Airtable or our database, and then upload the completion application PDF inside of the database. I completely understand that this can be overwhelming and time consuming if you want to build these things by yourself, particularly if you do it for the first time. You can literally spend hundreds of hours, if not more, to get to that point. But if you don't want to go through that by yourself, you can book a consultation call with us using the link down below. That's what we're here for. Our services include template, form, and automation development, as well as coaching through our Document Automation University or hourly consultations if you're just stuck and need help to speak to someone for a couple of hours. In the next video, I want to show you how you can create a client intake form questionnaire to streamline your client onboarding process and deliver the best possible experience to your customers. I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye.